Hi, I'm Brittany Hall, and today we are at Cloverleigh Farm in Columbia, and I'm talking to Susan about her greenhouse. Susan, could you tell us who you are and a little bit about your farm? Where can folks find your produce, and what do you do here?
Sure. Cloverleigh Farm is located on Route 87 in Columbia, and we are a diversified certified organic vegetable operation, growing about 5 acres of mixed vegetables and marketing most of that through a CSA, so people are coming here for their weekly share of produce. And we also go to Labyrinth Brewing in Manchester for a drop-off as well, to expand our geographic reach a little bit. And we sell to the local Willimantic Food Co-op quite a bit, so you can find our product there as well.
Awesome.
And we just acquired this property last year, so this is our second growing season here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I want to hear about your greenhouse. Can you tell us when it was built and who built it?
So the greenhouse is the first major construction project that we had for this property. It was built in December of 2021 by Connecticut Greenhouse Company. It was partially funded by a farm transition grant from the Connecticut Department of Agriculture.
Nice. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about the dimensions, like what size you've got and what materials you decided were important to you to have it when you were having it built?
So we basically sized it for the space that we had available. And I knew that I wanted to oversize it to be able to have room to grow into. So that was a consideration. We also have a bit of a slope here, so that was an issue. And we have our main crop field, you know, to one side. So we wanted to be able to have access from both sides, and decided to build a traditional style greenhouse as far as the materials go. The dimensions on this is 30 feet wide by 88 feet long, which just is what fits here. Because there is a slope, the slope didn't look significant just to the eye, but then when Connecticut Greenhouse Company came out and actually did laser points on all the four corners. The ground post, it was like, oh, there's actually a 3-foot difference from one side of the house to the other. So the grade was actually quite substantial. So we shortened the house a little bit to kind of lessen that and moved it. You know, we did some configuring based on the space that we had. And it was already going to be a rather expensive project, so we just used double 6 mil plastic, you know, for the top, the roll-up sides have Protect Net on them, so that was something I wanted because I wanted insect protection, so that was a little bit of an additional cost. And then the polycarbonate for the skirt.
And your end walls polycarb.
And the end walls are polycarb too. So it's, I think, you know, very common specs is what you would see a lot of places.
Definitely. All right, so you just told us a little bit about the build site, that you had to kind of shorten it. Is there anything unique to it? Did you pick it because this is the only spot that worked, or this made sense for where your field is? Yeah,
we did it sort of based on the whole landscape here at the farm. So we are next to our old 2-story chicken house, which is sort of the heart of our operation. And this is where we have water and electricity. So that's two things that we didn't want to, because that was a cost to be able to trench frost-free water out to the greenhouse. Plus also wanting it to be close to where our, you know, the heart of the operation was. And this was really the only site that made sense because it was open enough and not close to a tree line to, you know, create too much shade. The challenge was the grade a little bit, so the decision had to be like, okay, well, is it built level to the world or level to the ground surface? And they chose to level it to the world, which when you look at it and you look at the baseboard, the baseboard starts at the ground and then floats. So it was crazy seeing this thing being built and not really knowing what that was going to look like until you saw it. And I was like, oh, wow, that really is a substantial grade, and it looks kind of funny before the plastic went on, it looked totally weird.
Yes.
I think now you maybe don't notice it quite as much.
Yeah, especially your eye kind of just like follows the top of the
yeah.
house.
I really deferred to Connecticut Greenhouse because they don't necessarily build, they sell a lot of these kits.
Yeah.
And so they are more well versed in greenhouse construction than I am. So as far as like number of fans, size of exhaust, type of heating system.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't necessarily know what the right specs are for something like this. You know, I have been in a lot of other greenhouses, but often not necessarily paid attention to
all those little
construction details, right? So I really deferred to them. Yeah. For our heating source, we just chose natural gas, propane, just because it was available and it was the easiest thing for us to access.
Can you tell me about some of the uses you have for your greenhouse while we're in here?
Yeah. So we built it primarily for propagation. And for this season, you know, I mentioned that we built it larger than needed. So we're using half of it for propagation, starting in late winter, you know, all the way through August, with annual seeding, weekly seeding. And then we're also using half of it for trellising cucumbers in ground. So we had a plastic curtain up here earlier in the winter, so we didn't have to heat the entire structure. So trying to save a little bit in fuel costs. We just use big clamps, you know, put it over the top bow, clamped it on the purlins, clamped it on the wind braces, and just made sure that those pieces overlapped enough that air wasn't really getting through. We had to just weighted it down with whatever we had. And that was it. It was like good enough. It was nothing fancy. We actually filled up this space very quickly, faster than I imagined, in part because we did a seedling sale, pretty robust seedling sale this year, so those plants took up a lot of space in addition to the flats for the farm. So we've done a lot of juggling in here space-wise, and the plan will be in time, the cucumbers will go into another tunnel, and then this will become entirely propagation.
Do you have a sense of the total project cost of building the greenhouse?
Total was around $38,000. About $26,000 was the cost of the structure itself and the build. So I did not put the structure up myself. Connecticut Greenhouse Company did it for me. So $26,000 was for that. To get it all wired with my electrician was a little over $3,000, and then to get propane tanks and gas lines in was about $1,000. To trench for the utilities, for the water and the electric, that's based on how far they're going because he does it on a per hour basis. So that was $600 to do that trenching. And then I did buy these tables because I figured if I was building a brand new greenhouse, I was going to get nice, proper greenhouse tables.
that aren't going to like rot over time.
Yes, exactly. These are rather expensive. So the cost of the tables was around like $6,000, plus some hose trolleys, they're a couple $100. So yeah, all told, it was around $38,000.
Yeah.
It was funded in part by Farm Transition Grant from the Department of Agriculture. So they were able to fund came in a little less than 50% because there was such a time difference between when that project budget went in and when the project was actually executed, and the price of everything went up significantly. So I'm really grateful to have had any money to help cover the cost of this. And that is, you know, just an amazing resource to be able to have that option for us as farmers. So that's kind of why I sprang for the expensive tables, because I knew I was getting some help with it.
Awesome. How did you come up with the ventilation system to make sure you're not frying all your seedlings and your plants that are in there?
So we have the circulating fans that just move air around. And then on the end walls, we have, as part of the design, these very large louvers and then exhaust fans on the other end, which are thermostat controlled. Okay. So it's figuring out, okay, at what temperature should these open and at what temperature should the fans go on. Yeah. Coupled also with the fact that the sides on this roll up and down. Yeah. So earlier in the season, when we needed to vent, I was just rolling the sides up. And it would cool things off, it would be comfortable, and then at night, roll the sides down. You know, in the spring, you're doing up and down and up and down and up and down. And then you get to the point where it's just hot all the time. You don't have to worry about keeping warmth in during the nighttime. Yep. And then you have these huge fans kick on. And what I never really knew is that in order for the fans to actually do their job and pull air through the whole house, the side curtains need to be down. Oh. So it's very counterintuitive that like you're going to close this house down when it's 90 degrees out, and then you're going to pull air through it. Okay. So otherwise, because if the sidewalls are up, then the fans are just pulling air right in from right around it and not pulling it through the structure. I'm very happy with how it's worked, you know, sort of learning the nuances of the thermostats with the different louvers and fans and figuring out sort of where it's hot, where it's cold, that sort of thing within the greenhouse.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have any advice for folks who want to build a greenhouse or high tunnel? Like, did you do any specific research beforehand or talk to experts when you're planning this?
My advice is to find someone that knows what they're doing and someone who's built these before. Don't try to do it yourself the first time out. Because this is heated, you know, like it requires like a whole nother level of expertise, and it has electricity, and I'm not an electrician, and so there's no way I could have done that myself. Could I have physically put up the structure? Yes, it would have taken me much, much, much longer than the couple of days that it actually took, you know, with a crew of people who know how to do this. So I highly recommend, if you can find someone that has that knowledge, to really access it. Yeah. Because it'll save you a lot of time, a lot of headaches, really, a lot of money in the end. You know, the one thing people have always said to me is, build it bigger than you think you need, which is all well and good, but then when it comes to heating it in the winter time, you know, like, especially if you're starting in February or early March and it's still incredibly cold out, you know, like propane is expensive. Any fuel is expensive. So, anything that you can do to increase your efficiency, you know, is helpful.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome.